Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. I don't know all the rest of the sounds. Oh, the hills are alive with the sound of my past relationships failing not being my fault, except for my poor choice in men. Okay, hello, I'm Kropo, and I'm trying very hard to turn a gimmick Twitter account into a job so that I don't have to work call centers anymore. Now, recently I've decided to take a break from looking at particularly risque furry pornography and huffing inhalants to venture out into long-forgotten places, like my living room and my PlayStation 2. I tried starting out with Final Fantasy VIII, and I do intend to play a good number of Square games, if only to make the yaoi I've grown up with all these years finally make sense, but I found it was a bit too dense for someone who is just coming down from a fascist coup, so I opted for the first PlayStation 2 game I ever got. Dark Cloud, a knockoff Zelda game with cat girls. Not to knock it for being a knockoff. I won't knock jokes either, but I will knock it off with this wordplay. The Zelda games of the era were monumental. Indeed, Dark Cloud's inventory, targeting, and combat all have an influence from the N64 games. They've added a good number of things to make their own unique mark, to mixed results. For instance, I enjoyed the world-building gimmick. It gives a good reason for, and breaks up the tedium of, the dungeon crawling. I also enjoyed the fact that at an early point in the game, you can give a stray cat a potion and transform her into a playable cat-girl character. And that was a very formative moment in my young life when I was first jealous of a cat girl. And to return to this core experience was like going to your old school playground years after you've grown up. Only it's your insecurities and self-hatred. Less fun is the degradation mechanic, the item degradation mechanic, not, the stuff that happens in the bedroom. Degradation, in video games, just like in the bedroom, is a subtle art that can often be overdone. And when half your inventory slots are dedicated to repair items, we can safely say you've overdone it on the degradation. I'm a really good girl. Honest. You don't need to tell me that I'm bad. Sometimes I need to be told that I'm good. Please. I need to hear. But, tied to the degradation system, is a weapon upgrade system. And here's where I found the most joy in Dark Cloud. After leveling the weapon up to a certain point, you can break it down so that you can add half of its stats to another weapon. It's a tedious process to be sure, but randomly generated dungeons help spice that up, as does the allure of seeing something you work for pay off. Oh my god. As an adult, I appreciate that so much more, especially with 10 years of working call centers. Yes. I've worked a good 12 hours to upgrade my sword by grinding up a dozen smaller, less powerful swords and then pulverizing them into a power and then snorting that power and then sneezing that powder onto my current sword. Now, doing the lower level dungeons over and over again, it can be a bit tedious, but damned if it doesn't feel good to go to the current level dungeon and just face rolling things over like butter. Well, that's a mixed metaphor. You cut through them like butter and it's a face roll. There we go. It's a nice feeling that they specifically design out of games now. That feeling that your grinding is paid off. I suspect I'm a bit weird in that I do enjoy grinding in a video game. I used to grind Reputation in World of Warcraft, and this feels similar. It's a good way to turn off my mind and just get into a comfortable spot and kill a few hours in my day, all while being jealous of cat girls. And here we can see the benefit of revisiting these old games. We can see how the mindless grind of 20 years ago compares to the malignant grind of today, where there's always something to try and charge you money to skip the current grind and get to the next grind. There's often a catharsis of being able to romper stomp over mobs and just face roll them and cut through them like butter, as previously mentioned. You're always in a state of manufactured discontent, in which your progress is being judged by others and you feel left behind. And in Dark Cloud, unlike in Team Fortress 2, you don't uncover rings of neo-Nazi Steam groups once a month. Gaming has always, but especially lately, been about trends, with yearly franchise releases that leave the previous one to wither and die, where the work and money you sunk in one year evaporates instantly the next, and is replaced by a pull, a negative force, the fear of being left behind in the current year, seasons coming and going, and now default becoming the go-to playground insult to replace the homophobia of my generation with just straight-up classism. And as the anxiety of life encroaches onto the places where we used to take breaks from it, it's nice to know that we can take a deep breath, let go, and land in a spot where everything was already settled decades ago. And all we need to do is just enjoy the fruits of that era however we please.